Sherman!
We named him Sherman, partly because he was built like a little tank, but mostly because it was an appropriately ridiculous name for such a ridiculous dog.
Squishy little manatee.
Angel and I still remember the day we first met Sherman at a dog rescue event. I immediately exclaimed something about, "Look at the head on that guy."
Could you be any cuter?
It was huge. We later measured it, and it was the equivalent of a regulation volleyball. He was older, obviously, and he smelled terrible. His elbows were like thick, old leather patches. A lot of his hair was gone. He had a sort of a weird hunchback. One eye bulged out, blind, looking painfully ready to pop. His ears were almost entirely cut off. The tiniest of nubs were left behind.
We got some cuteness right there.
He leaned into being petted. He wanted to be loved so much. I couldn't leave him there.
Oh, Sherman.
We agreed to foster him for a bit until we could get him healthier and ready for a home. When that first night around dusk, I took him out on leash into our yard. The light wasn't good for seeing, and he bumped into my knee. He squealed like he had been hit. He hadn't bumped into me hard enough to hurt. I think he thought this was the start of a beating. So I stopped, I kneeled down, and I loved him so hard through all that stank. I told him, "It's okay now, buddy. Nobody will ever hurt you again. You're okay now. I promise. Nobody will ever hurt you again."
He's coming out.
He's coming in.
He was great around our other two dogs.
Oh, Sherman.
He clearly didn't have a mean bone in his body. He had lots of fear, but not an ounce of mean.
Everything ever.
He started becoming more comfortable with greeting new people.
That's cute.
He was realizing he was safe with us. We decided that we couldn't give him up. He was already family. We had the bad eye removed. Later, he had double knee surgery because they were both completely blown out. We had several close calls with him. He nearly died 2 or 3 times from intestinal issues. He was a very expensive dog. I figured out at one point that between surgeries, ER visits, and meds, he cost somewhere around $30,000.
Sherman.
We don't really have that kind of money to spend on a dog, but this was Sherman.
Say hi, Sherman. Are you being silly?
I can't explain just how much joy he brought into our lives despite the hassles and costs. Sherman was no dog. He was a fantastic beast that enchanted everyone he met. People that were scared of pit bulls fell in love with him. He was a great ambassador for misunderstood breeds. All the while, his hips were deteriorating and it became very hard for him to walk. I custom-built stairs that were just right for him to get up on the bed and the sofa, as he always wanted to come up for a long cuddle. His hips got worse. His anxiety became a little harder to control. He was sundowning a lot. Caring for Sherman was hard, but we learned patience, and he never stopped showing us just how much he loved us. Then one morning, he woke up far more panicked than usual. It became very obvious that the one eye he had gone completely blind overnight. Not even a little bit of light sensitivity. He was terrified. The sun had not risen this day. His world was pitch black. He was so scared. We talked a lot before that about the fact that it was getting to be time for Sherman. He was really old and he was in a lot of pain. It was time. So we set up an appointment for that night. We got fries, a bunch of cheeseburgers, and 2 glazed donuts. We fed some fries and a cheeseburger in the car sitting in the vet's parking lot.
We love you, Sherman.
We brought in his dog bed to rest on during the process. We told him we loved him so much and hugged him and fed him 3 more cheeseburgers and donuts during the process. He never felt a thing. He slipped quietly and beautifully away. They left us alone in the room, and Angel lit a small piece of incense. She read a book of prayers over him while I wailed in the corner. We eventually gathered up our things, took his collar, and went home in a car that felt very empty. I always loved you, and I always will, my dear Sherman. I did keep my promise. Nobody ever hurt him again. We miss you, Sherman.